complete architectural language, very much as the great architects of antiquity attempted to create an architectural language from the stones and the lintels that they were able to make. Columns were closely spaced and so forth.
Mies had achieved, particularly at the Barcelona pavilion, was an aesthetic of industrialized material. They learned to use obvious things of chrome to define light, to define shapes, to promise some sort of new world. They employed a richness of material contrasts and combinations which was new. When he came here to Chicago especially, he immediately tried to translate our industrialization into some other kind of vocabulary. It was rather grim. His use of brick, his use of concrete, he felt as if we had a grimness, I suppose. If we were a straight line society, he was going to give us straight line buildings, and the box and the module of the box was precisely what he was going to compel us to live in. He said to me at one time, "Goldberg, I will teach people to live in my buildings."
His passion was the straight line and the precision of brick on brick. And especially the use of glass, where I learned what has ended up, of course, in his house. He was, to me, one of the great architects of the century, and still remains that. But as friends, it was another matter. He wouldn't talk English, so I could keep up my German, and he could relax over especially after the fourth martini. He was quite eloquent. But I don't think anybody knew him as well because nobody was willing to drink along with him. And let's have another was the most familiar phrase in Chicago.
Mies made a comment that you have to borrow the sky when you are not seeing the sky. He had the ability to be an architecture poet or a painter who could create immensely extended landscapes with this wonderful mirrored image of the total horizon.
The Seagram building is the one building that people don't think of as a glass box. Well, it is, except just as much of a glass box as Lever House. But it doesn't look like it because of the second plane that Mies had the intelligence, although unbeknownst to himself, to emphasize. He was taking an enormous column and putting decorative I-beams on them. It created a second plane besides the glass plane, which enriched the building.
In Germany, when Mies was working with the post and beam, he was working to shelter an area of space beneath which and through which there was a flow of space, a continued flow of space. Very romantic floor plans, all two-dimensional floor plans, but nevertheless very romantic.
The Mies in America, post-Bauhaus, was, however, in a way, a kind of architecture of despair. When he came here, I think that he closed up a bit. The openness that was evident in his work in Germany was now only vestigially seen in floor plans and lobbies, but the buildings were effectively closed, and he returned to the comfort of the classical language of architecture. I would submit that in the end, in America, Mies was a classical architect, not a modernist architect, even though he had come from the Bauhaus. He saw an opportunity here, and I think took it.
America had not always been kind to Moholy, and by 1946, he was seriously ill. He was too weak to work, his wife would write. He watched the changing cloud formations in the daytime and the stars at night. He asked to hear Heine's
Denk ich an Deutschland in der Nacht, dann bin ich den Schlaf gebracht.
and
Ich hatte einst ein schönes Vaterland.
he spoke of Germany with infinite sadness and affection. His bitterness was gone. He only remembered what Germany had given him. Gropius understood that the possibility of building on a grand scale, which had long eluded him in Germany, was almost at hand. With foresight, he expressed his new manifesto. We will soon experience a building boom, such as this country has never experienced in its history. He also understood that the building industry itself would become the employer of choice for thousands of factory workers and veterans once the war was over. For whom are we going to build, he asked? For the people in all income groups. We now face the task of rebalancing the life of the community and humanizing the impact of the machine.
After the Second World War, most of us that came back, we felt we could change the world with art, or we could change it with architecture.
The time to build for Gropius was after World War II. His ideas were not in fertile territory anymore. America is a primarily pragmatic country, so great utopian ideas about social improvement really eventually don't pan out anyhow.
Following the success of their New England houses, Gropius and Breuer were commissioned to build the Frank House. It was their most ambitious project to date and their last. They quarreled over a trifle and dissolved their firm in 1944. Gropius would need to find a new team.
They were just a bunch of people kind of wondering what they were going to do after the war, people who believed in working together.
The Architects Collaborative came to be named that because we wanted to express intimations of group practice, intimations of service to society, the anonymous name instead of the big artist. Would he be interested in joining the group? Gropius came back enthusiastically, and the office started early 1946.
The whole Architects Collaborative idea was a different idea than working as one man with one architect, and that's a very direct thing. He found himself always in a much stronger position if he had an architect to work with. So I think that he made a tremendous contribution, but I don't think that he felt at ease all alone making those magical instinctive moves that are